Hello, my name's Crystal, I'm the events manager, and we are back with another podcast. This is our Inspired in Hull series, and today we are at Hillsborough Stadium, so we've left campus and we are joined by Liam Dooley, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Sheffield Wednesday. Hi Liam.
Hello, you alright?
Yeah,
Welcome to Sheffield Wednesday, I should be saying, really,
yeah,
with
you
the pitch
should.
behind us.
Yeah, thank you. The plan was to do most of these on campus, but I think we've all enjoyed a little trip out.
I would apologise if this gets picked up on the podcast, that you can now hear Sheffield Wednesday music in the background, but that's because we're getting ready for the new season, but we'll see if you can hear that one.
And a new season in which division?
Championship.
Where all the good teams play, I'd say. So you came back to campus in November last year, and you did a panel event with us. You were joined by Ben, who I think was one of your friends from uni.
Yep.
So you already knew Ben. So it was Ben Napper, who's the loans manager at Arsenal. We had Frankie from Middlesbrough, head of fitness, and then we had one of our own staff members, and we were just talking about how it's possible for our students in business to aspire to work within the industry of sport, and equally for our guys that study any of the sports disciplines to take up a business role. So what did you study with us? What was your transition?
Mine's a bit of a strange one, as I did politics, philosophy and economics.
Okay.
So I guess the business side of it is covered by economics.
Okay.
I absolutely loved it, but the reason I did that degree in the first place was because I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do, but it was something that meant that I could branch into different areas. The university had a great reputation, still does, for its politics alliances. So I thought, well, that gives me one angle there, but really I had an interest in economics from doing it at A-level and wanted to go down the business route as well as part-time at that stage working selling sofas in SCS Sofa Company in Hull. So yeah, very, very broad, distant, different way to get a degree, and then the pathway where we've ended up today.
Do you think you peaked too soon by going to SCS Sofas? I
wish it was still there now. No, I'm kidding. I did actually say when I was there I wanted to carry on working there because it was good fun, but I said no, I don't want to do it because I don't want to work weekends.
Okay.
Lo and behold, 15 years on, how many years it is, and now I'm working 6.5 days a week every Saturday and pretty much staying over wherever we're playing not getting home till Sunday afternoon and then starting again. So weekends kind of came with the territory. I would have said unfortunately, now I'd probably say thankfully.
So where did you go between sofas and the lofty heights of Sheffield Wednesday?
We can say the lofty heights now. We're back in the Championship. It's been quite a varied career for me so far, in that by working selling sofas, having a job since I was kind of 13 years old, doing bits and bats and trying
I think that's illegal for a sofa shop to be selling sofas.
I wasn't sewing them or anything like that. But I've worked all my life and wanted to do that, wanted to have my own money, wanted to be able to buy nice things, and that's kind of always sort of been in and around sales, despite doing a more theoretical degree, I suppose. It was all about chatting to people, getting to know, building relationships, and that's kind of where I took my first proper job, if you want to call it that. Yeah. After leaving uni, I did a grad scheme with PepsiCo in food and drink. At the time it was mainly the brands that we were looking after were Walker's Crisps, Tropicana Orange Juice and Quaker Oats.
Okay.
And part of that, for the first year and a half, you were literally driving a van full of crisps, selling it to corner shops, and basically what you didn't realise at the time is they were giving you the opportunity to make lots of mistakes, learn how to sell, learn how to chat to people, manage your own accounts, and all these things that you thought, why am I driving this van? I've just got a degree. But it's only now when you're a lot older that you go, that's why they did it that way, and absolutely loved it. I was there for just over 6 years at Pepsi, doing a variety of jobs, from backstreet corner shops to managing WH Smith's as an account, managing Wilco's as an account. So big numbers, and bit by bit they drip fed you into a place where you didn't realise, especially with the training that they were giving you, how much they were helping your future development. And I think it's only when you step away from working for a big company that you do realise how much time and money they do invest in you. So it's something I would always recommend if people get the opportunity to work with blue chip companies. But I did always have a passion for working overseas. So as part of that, it got to a stage after 6 years, I said, look, I'm wanting to move, and within PepsiCo there's lots of world opportunities, but I'd always kind of kept my options open. And again, it's something that I would recommend to people, is even if you love the job that you do, always keep your finger on the pulse, see what's happening. And was approached to work in Dubai with the company that represent Diageo. So while I didn't work directly for Diageo, which is another huge global alcohol and spirits brand, it was for their local distributor in the market. I went out to Dubai for just over 2 years. Again, loved it. It was what a lifestyle that you had, selling alcohol in a country where people tend to think you can't drink alcohol, but you definitely can. It's just full of drunken Brits, really. Right. But it was great. But it got to the point where I was enjoying my life a little bit too much, and thought, if I'm going to ever grow up,
student again.
Yeah, it was like having 3 years. It was like being back in Hull. And,
but the nightlife just wasn't quite as good as Hull, I imagine.
At the age of like 28, I was going out more than when I was 18. It was it was crazy. But no, to be fair, it was definitely like that. It was like Dubai, if anybody is considering going, is a little bit like a second shot at uni.
Right, okay.
New friends, new people, all really nice people. Everybody makes you feel welcome, and you just spend a lot of your time either drunk or with a hangover. But it was great again, and putting yourself outside the comfort zone and making friends. And actually, through football, you met a lot of your new friends that were there. But it was a case of you either stay and having a brilliant life, but I would have probably still been doing a very similar job. I'd have probably still been, I hate to make it all bad, I'm probably still drunk 6 days a week. And I would never have probably got to where I am now, where I want to go in future if I'd have stayed there. And the opportunity came up. And every time I say the opportunity came up, I mean, I went to try and find it. I wouldn't ever say things come and knock on your door. I do think you have to go and search for them. But I told myself I don't want to move back to the UK just to do one thing, and I wanted something that still allowed me to be international, and got the job as head of international sales for Piper's Crisps, which is not far from Hull, in Elsham. In Brigg is probably for the people that are not that local, but it was very strange walking from a cosmopolitan city like Dubai into a little industrial estate in Brigg. Was a little bit of a culture change.
But you went from Walkers to Pipers.
Yes.
So you're just following the crisps.
And I would say, and I mean, it gets even weirder in a minute, because after working 2 years at Pipers and building the brand around the world, moving to New York and setting up the office in New York for Pipers, we then sold the business back to Pepsi again. So I ended up working back in Walkers and Pepsi, and it all
came
went
full
back.
circle.
So I'm allowed to say that I don't have a favourite.
No, you're not. That was my next question. Pipers. No, that you know, we absolutely insist.
Pipers Black Pepper, best crisps in the world.
Good, thank you.
That is still there, and a Monster Munch beef every now and again.
Okay, just to jazz it up a bit. Okay, noted. Fab.
But from that point, and this is I've said it before, is that I'd always wanted to work within football. I've been there 2 years at Pipers. The opportunity to join back with PepsiCo was great for me, because I'd been there before. I knew what the company was like. It was a brilliant company to work for, and I could have continued to work within PepsiCo and probably would have been there now and still been very happy. But I followed my passion and got in touch with the owner of Sheffield Wednesday, which is something that's I've been passionate about since as long as I can remember. My family are all Wednesday fans, and got in touch with the chairman at the time. He had an energy drink and said, I can help you with the energy drink. But I'd like to get into football. A couple of years of trying to get the energy drink off the ground, as well as doing little bits in football. He gave me the opportunity, and I'll always be thankful for him for doing that. We now do different things with the drink, so that's still something that's a project in the background, but was moved from that into commercial director of the football club for another 18 months, and then became chief operators. That's it. It was the one there. Just coming. We obviously didn't put the "do not disturb" sign on.
You wouldn't get this on campus.
Then became chief operating officer just over 2 years ago now, which has been a exciting journey. I thought you get to a stage where you stop learning things, but I don't think there's a day in this job that goes by when something new. I mean, you guys have seen it in the last hour that you've been here. The amount of things that get thrown at you and you have to deal with are crazy, and it's something that makes it exciting every day that you come to work.
And no doubt you're able to handle all of those various things because of the education, training and experience you had at the University of Hull.
Of course. There's nothing like getting on a bus from the Lawns in the cold, it breaking down and then coming past. And
So did you live in the Lawns?
I was at the Lawns,
Okay.
absolutely loved it. And when I went back recently, I was a little bit gutted that it wasn't still part of the uni, because I feel our age group, or our cohort, whatever the correct word is, we all got to know each other so well and became so close because you were just all thrown in it together, and those games of footy or rugby or whatever out on the field. And I remember the summer when we first got there, it was so hot and everybody was just barbecuing every day, and the Kooks was like the album that everybody, everywhere you went around the Lawns, it was like the Kooks was playing. That album takes me back every time to being there. And the people that you met then, most of them are still like, and Crystal knows this from when I did the talking at the event, I get emotional when I talk about it, but the people that you met then are your friends for life. And I remember a chat when I first went in with the guy called David Waugh, I think was his name, who was the warden at the time, said, the people you meet now, people get married, they'll be friends, and we think you've got no chance. Look at these strange people, and before you know it, you've been...
I'm sure they were thinking the same about you
as
well.
You've been at every one of them's wedding, you still see them, or you're out with them all the time, and I think that's one of the best things about Hull as a place and as a uni, especially because it was, I know now it's full on campus, but even the fact that it was kind of on campus off it, if that makes sense, it was amazing. And the friends and the atmosphere of Hull, I think, it's amazing, and that's what's one of the best parts about the uni itself.
We've got that reputation, I think, and I'm glad that you said that, because I think that follows the graduates that I speak to across various decades of generation. That's the one thing that threads all of their experiences together, is that they say that the University of Hull is the friendly university. It's where you will just feel at home, no matter where you've moved from, and where you'll forever feel connected to.
100%. The reason I went to Hull in the first place, it wasn't my first choice as going back to putting it up there. But it was because of the open day, and the open day, looking around and daft things that you don't think you're influenced by as a kid, but it just looked amazing. Like, you're outside the library and there was beautiful flowers. They probably have these at every uni, but when you go to a city-based uni, you kind of like, Hull's not a city by the way, but you just like, oh, that's the main road and that's this. Whereas you just felt like it felt a warm and friendly place to be, continued to be so. And I think the fact that, as I mentioned, that's just one set of friends that we always see each other, mainly rugby lads that I used to be friends with there and live with. A complete different set of friends from uni is all the football boys, and we still go back for football old boys every year. And I keep getting my maths wrong, but 15 years on from being there, we still go back once a year, and you see that set of friends. And I think it's so powerful, and the fact that they go back to Hull for it shows that things might change, bars might change, things, but the atmosphere still tends to be really friendly as I find it.
We had recently had graduations, and we find every year that we get more and more students that come through from Sheffield, or at least from South Yorkshire, and they haven't necessarily studied at the university, because we accredit a lot of degrees for various colleges in South Yorkshire, and these students or these graduates are coming through for the ceremony, and that's their first visit to Hull. What would you say to the students who are technically graduates of the University of Hull but haven't had the opportunity to experience it yet? Would you encourage them to go to the city?
Without a doubt. I said it on the night when I was speaking. I was one of the first people to leave my village to go to uni, along with one of my best mates, who ended up being the captain of the football team that won boosts and all that kind of stuff. He's still one of my best mates now, Adam Stare. And when we both left, it was like big news it sounds mental, but it's just a little village where we're from, and we went, and I think the fact we went together probably shows that we weren't that brave, and we didn't really know us. And I did the whole, a week into it, I'm crying on the phone to my mum saying I don't like it, I want to go home. But you've seen me get emotional then, but it genuinely changes your life, and that being away as an 18-year-old is the difference between, I think, being sat there at 25, 26 and still being at home, or you take your step out of it and you go to such an amazing place and go, this is how life is. So when you move back to your mum and dad's, I'm not staying here. You go and
I'm not that same person.
Lo and behold, me and Steady spend that much time together at uni, even though we're still best mates. But when we both got back, the first thing we did to our little village was look round and go, I'm not going back in with mum and dad. And then we got a house together, and like people, what, 2 lads in a house together, just mates in a little. But it's because we were that, we couldn't stand. We would both love our parents and all the rest of it. But you wanted to go back and you wanted to go out. You didn't want people judging you. You didn't want people saying, oh, what are you coming at this time for? You were like, you got your independence, and I think, don't get me wrong, getting a degree, particularly from the University of Hull, whether that's on campus or off it, brilliant. But if you get the opportunity, it does 100% change everything you are as a person, in my opinion.
How much of where you are now do you attribute to being at the University of Hull?
Probably a massive part of it, because I mentioned that my particular set of friends who we spend a lot of time with, nearly all of them went on to be really successful. And I think that's because you have that natural, the environment that you're in, that sporting stuff that I talk about with, whether that's rugby, whether that's football, that's I wouldn't say hockey because that's not a sport, but so that's an old football one. But by being in that competitive environment and being in Asylum, presumably it still is Asylum on a Wednesday night, you've got that natural competitive spirit around you all the time, and you'll want to be better than your mate, but you'll also be really close to your mate at the same time. And I think that drives you on, spurs you on, puts you in a group, a set of peers that when you go back and see each other, you want to, I'm doing this now, I'm doing the other. And while I don't think a degree is absolutely everything, I do think it is really important, because it just shows that you've got that to be able to balance the two, rather than necessarily the qualification. It's the being able to balance the two of, I'm moving away for the first time, but I'm learning to do my own washing, I'm learning to balance my own budget, so I'm learning to be able to go to uni on a hangover, because one day you're going to have to go to work on a hangover. it's that's your first, and if you can come out of that and get a degree as well, I think that shows your aptitude to be many things to many people, organise yourself, and I do think that's part of it. And I think some of the networks from people at Hull didn't necessarily benefit me getting into the jobs that I got into, but now the amount of people that we'll work with and talk to and everything else because they're from Hull, and then later on you'll find out they're from Hull, I think there's that inner pride that makes you want to work with those people. So I think Hull's a massive part to play in that.
Yeah, we hear that a lot actually, that there's still this kind of draw. A University of Hull graduate will naturally try and support, seek out, work with other University of Hull graduates.
Yeah, well, I would definitely, and if someone's got that, if I'm interviewing somebody and they've got that on the CV, immediately you find yourself having a chat about, is that still there? What, do you still go out this night? And
it's connecting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that's special with Hull versus other unis, I think, in that regard.
So you mentioned Asylum. Where else did you go?
Everywhere. Literally, well, it was Monday night. I'm trying to do it off the top of my head. My friend Cam listens to this. We used to go every single night out together. I remember a point where I was trying to get him to go out in the final year, and I was like, Cam, we've only got like 12 more waterfronts left before we have to graduate. And then lo and behold, he went back for another 2 years after that.
Well, there you go. Additional waterfronts. Of course, that's
probably not there. That we had waterfront, our pipers on the Monday, and the supercharged or turbochargers in Mission round the corner beforehand.
Okay.
What else?
Did you ever go to Spiders, the infamous Spiders?
I think one night, and then was like put off that one.
Were you?
Forever. Same with Welly. I was like, nope.
No, not for
Absolutely.
you. Okay.
Never. I wanted the poser places. Get me in position when it was Thursday.
And that's gone as well.
That's a block of flats now. I drove past it the other day. I went up to Withensea and said, where's position?
And
it's a block of flats, but position, waterfront, Asylum on a Wednesday with the fancy dress or the suits from football, where it was brilliant, and we genuinely went out as much as anybody's ever done, I think, in them 3 years.
Now, your name is fairly synonymous with the city, not necessarily Liam, but certainly the Dooley part. You've got Dooley's restaurant in here. That's a big Sheffield name.
Mm-hmm.
If you could choose any street or location in Hull to rename and put Dooley on, where would you choose?
I think it'd be Falmouth Street.
Okay.
Because we lived there in the third year, and we had 2 houses next door to each other. we had a house of 10 of us on Bev Road in the second year, and
Wow.
but in the third year we had 2 houses next door to each other, and some of the memories and stuff that went off in there. I mean, someone set our wheel had been on fire, and it was there was an earthquake. There was all sorts went off.
Wow.
Genuinely, it was. But that year was class. I do remember it will come across on this podcast that I am like a raving alcoholic, but I remember a year afterwards going back to Old Boys, and I would have only been 22 at the time, something like that, and I couldn't find where I was staying. I couldn't find any of my mates. I remember knocking back on the door of a 46 Falmouth and saying, "Look, I know you don't know me, but I painted them walls. Is there any chance of you let me have a bed for the night?" And surprisingly, they told me to get lost.
Right,
but I think Falmouth
fair,
meant so much to our, because there were so many of us on that street and other people that we knew lived on there. That was a big thing for us.
So we put blue plaques up in various places, not just in Hull, across the UK, where significant people have lived in houses. If there was to be a blue plaque put up at Falmouth Street that said, Liam Dooley once lived here, what would we be celebrating? What's your future? Where are you heading to? What's the mark that you want to make?
I think the fact that it's blue is a good start. If it was a red plaque, I think there'd be a problem. The fact that it's not gold probably shows that I'm definitely not the most athletic. Despite me loving football, I'm not the best player.
But what's your mark on the world? Are you staying in football? Is that where you want to be? Do you want to be known as?
From my side, and I know we've had this conversation before, but the reason I want to join Sheffield Wednesday, and I have to have a deep breath before I say all this, because I know that I do get emotional quite easy, and you never really do talk about yourself. You're always in the muck and bullets of doing your day job, but I wanted to come in to try and make a difference, and hopefully we've done that over the last few years. There's certain things that we can control, certain things that are not within our control, but the things that we can, we try and make better. And I genuinely think that I work every minute of every day to try and make something that I believe in better. Deep breath. And by doing that, you come across certain other things that are positions of power, particularly within local governments, politics, councils, people that make big decisions that affect the safety of people, the lifestyles of people, the living arrangements. And by doing that, you sort of change your perception of where power resides and think, well, actually, if I can try and make one place better, I'll try and make it. So I don't know whether that will always be in football, whether that's going to another club and wanting to try and make that particular club better. I'm a trustee for the Sheffield Wednesday Community Programme, and the work they do, or what we do, is unbelievable. The amount of kids that, like over 120,000 kids a year, lives we impact and make better.
Amazing.
And that's the same across football. So if the opportunities come in that in many years to come, then maybe that's the way. Or if there's other areas to try and make things better, that's what I'm interested in. And as I allude to, I do think it empowers me to come to work every day and think, do you know what? Everything I give. It sounds like a Bryan Adams song, but everything I do, I want to try and make things better. And if that is within a different department, whether that's within a government organisation, whether that's within a philanthropic organisation, whether that's just being in a business that does good for good people, then that's what I'd like to do, and finish your career, to answer your original question, and be proud of what you've done and try and make things better, not just for yourself but for other people as well.
Because of course you're a PPE graduate, aren't you, of ours? So do we expect that you might join the ranks of the whole mafia in Westminster one day? Are we looking at a future Prime Minister? How good do you want to? How much control are you wanting to take over the good that you do?
I want to take over the world.
Okay, yeah, I was getting that impression.
No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, I think you can only do what's in front. You can only do what's in front of you. You can try and influence that, and make that better. If that works and that opens up a door to something else, then have a look through it, see what you can do. And as I mentioned earlier on, you do also have to seek things out. And if there's areas that you can do, I mean, I mentioned to you away from this, but I've just become a governor within a school. So I think, well, how can I help that? I spend a lot of time with teachers. My partner's a teacher, and I see how much work she does and how much passion she gives to that. And think, well, these people probably need a hand by people that know things about business, not everything, but know little bits. How can I help? So by being a governor, I think, well, can I make that little bit better? I don't know. I think there's so much opportunity in the world that if you're doing a good job at what you're doing, but you continue, as I mentioned, to put yourself out there in other situations, I think other points will come to you. Is can you be on some sort of committee? Can you be on this, or can you be on a board somewhere with a non-exec role? And that's something that I'm looking at doing at the moment. To just further that experience, give something back, but also try and develop yourself at the same time. I realise that sounded quite big I am, but you know what I mean.
I think we get it. I think you might be quite pleased, proud, hopefully, to know that the university actually works with a large organisation. I think we've probably had conversations about it before, maybe, called Into University, where we look to work with children from poor socioeconomic backgrounds that don't have the same access to education as others do. We focus on working with children that rely on free school meals, that programme. And we encourage them into university. We have students that go out and do mentoring programmes. We've got a lot of graduates from the University of Hull that have donated, and that's an amazing partnership that we have in a similar vein to what you're doing. So the university is a source for good as well. And
it touches back on what we were saying before, but I think those people, and that Hull doing that more than anybody else, is almost more valuable, because people won't go there and be put off by any kind of class divide or any kind of thing that think, oh, I'm not worth this, because let's be honest, you go to where you feel comfortable, and if you do all of that and you encourage people into it, where they get there and think, well, this isn't for me, I hate to say, but what was the point? Whereas if you come to Hull and everybody's nice to you and you've got something that grounds you all together, I don't know, you might play football, you might play netball, you might play ultimate frisbee, I don't know, there'll be something.
You're good at frisbee, Liam.
I can't even catch, so I won't start that one, but you don't. The point I'm making is you find your set of people within wherever you are, and I think it's easier to do that, especially if you come from an underprivileged background. We're from a mining village in Barnsley. That's where we're from. It's not a particularly affluent area, but you go there and you find your feet, and it's amazing what it does open up. Opportunities are there.
So did that little boy from that Barnsley village that used to support Sheffield Wednesday ever think that he'd be sat here now with this view?
I mean,
as the COO of this football club,
I'll phrase it. I always wanted to do it, so I always is quite a egotistical thing to say, but I think if people don't laugh at your dreams, not big enough, and I wouldn't be here if I hadn't worked hard to get here in the first place. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't wrote a letter to get in touch with the owner of the club, and he wouldn't. A lot of things have to be right. Like, he had to take a chance on me, and like I say, I'll always be grateful for that. But I did always. There used to be a guy he's still in football now, and he used to run this place called Andy Dakin. He's probably not listen to this, but he used to watch him do the speeches after match, and my uncles was fortunate, used to sponsor a few games. Think, what a cool job he's got. He's with the footballers. He's doing that. He's doing the other. But I think so. I'd always in my head wanted to do it, and I think if you want something enough in the long run, you can hopefully go and get it. So yes, don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly fortunate to be here, but you do work. I think if you work hard for something and you have a goal of doing it, I think you can get there. You do need a lot of luck along the way, but you kind of make your own luck as well as you do it.
So what has been one of your most exciting moments? The playoffs got to be up there, surely. There's not many clubs that come back from 4-0 down to talk about an underdog story at that.
I mean, it culminates with a Windass winner at Wembley, which is something that
we're very familiar with.
It comes in that I was at Hull at the time when Hull got achieved promotion to the Premier League and was on the.
I was at Wembley at the time while you were in Hull.
I remember the Open Top Bus parade and being like, "This is amazing." We went to a couple of games that season, and we're doing the whole. You're being mauled by the Tigers, and it was
the worst, most embarrassing football chant there's got to be, but still.
It's even worse when you're there and you're taking your new girlfriend at the time to a first ever away match and you get beat 4-0 and they've got grown men doing it towards you. That's
the only bit that makes it bearable, I think, is that it's a terrible, terrible chant, but if we're doing it, it means that we're winning by a good margin, so we'll let it go.
It was interesting, but no, the best moment for me was coming back from 4-0. I think it probably will be, not just as a fan, but not just as an employee or someone that works for the club, but as a fan or any football fan. to what we achieved that night, coming back from 4-0 down the first leg to 4-0 to 4-1 to 5-1, and the penalties, it was absolutely balmy. And I think the fact that my dad's 64, his birthday last week, and he said that's the best night he's ever had, probably shows that that's the...
Oh, I get that. I mean, I know what it's like to be an underdog. I'm a Hull City fan, so we've lived that, and like you referenced, we did it. I think we awkwardly stopped you having a big moment at Wembley on one occasion.
We don't talk
as
about
well.
Yeah, that's...
well, we'll gloss over that bit, shall we? But even as a Hull City fan, like, I was rooting for you guys on that night. I think everybody that was a win for Yorkshire, I think, on that night.
It definitely captured the hearts and minds. The fact that you got Pep Guardiola speaking about it the week after in the interview probably shows how far and wide that story went. And the footage in the dressing room, the atmosphere of the night, the Sky cameras, the fact it became a Sky advert for showing things afterwards was crazy, and something that as long as you go on, you'll remember, and wherever your career takes you. I mean, I've now got a thing on my wall of like the programme and the things that we do, because you think, well, this might not happen again. Hopefully we'll get promoted this year and we'll keep going, and that's been the case. But yeah, definitely for me it was that was a massive win to do that. And I think from a personal perspective, off the field, when you start seeing things that you're doing come to life, like you do a front shirt sponsorship deal, and it's on there, and that's there forever. And I did that, and it's just they're the nice career things that go with it. But yeah, on the pitch is what's most important. On the pitch is why we've got 27,000 people on average last year coming here. We've got probably 30,000 for the first game of the season this weekend. Is all about the product that's on the pitch, and hopefully we keep going in the direction that we're going in.
Well, you referenced earlier that if people don't laugh at your dreams, that they're not big enough. Just for the record, I definitely laughed when you suggested you were going to get back-to-back promotions.
I think we all know the Championship's a really tough division, but if you ask the owner, he'll say looking to try and get in the playoffs, and statistically, you've got 1 in 4 chance of being in there, regardless of your of your squad.
If the Owls are going, the Tigers are going with them. That's what I'm saying.
And that's it. You don't know. It's a tough division. There's a lot of matches. There's a lot of things that can happen. But I actually think that you don't really know what's happening in the Championship until the last game of the season. I think last season there was down to up to 13th could still get into the playoffs with a couple of games to go. So if you're in the top half with a couple of games to go, you never know. Realistically, as long as we're still in the Championship next year, I think we'd be relatively happy. But you've got to try and push on as much as you can.
So you said that was one of your highlights. What's been one of your toughest gigs since you've been here?
I think probably the first, losing 4-0 against Peterborough is... But I think you learn a lot in that situation, because while the fan in you wants to go around kicking doors and getting upset and probably venting, you watch other people in that situation who've been there before, the manager, the owner, the people, and the way they carry themselves, you go, well, actually I do need to be as professional as I can, despite being really, really upset and getting goaded by fans. You try and take on board it, and luckily the same came then when we did turn it round. The assistant manager of Peterborough, someone that I've known, he's from the same village that I am, or the one just next door. But seeing how upset he was and knowing how he felt, not that he's a massive friend, I've known him a long time, and just putting your arm around him and saying, I'm really sorry, mate, was almost more in my mind than going mad, because you think, well, for every time you win, you're gonna have a loss, and that's pretty tough. So yeah, I think that it's a constant roller coaster on and off the pitch, and I think by being a fan, the highs are even higher and the lows are even lower than if it was another club that you were working at. But yeah,
because it was almost a fairy tale performance last season, wasn't it? You guys were in the top 2 for the majority of it. You knocked out Newcastle in the cup.
Everything seemed to go well. If you look back, it was brilliant, and we'd probably have taken all that. We'd have taken the 1-0 defeat at Forest Green if you know you were going to get the 4-0 turnover. You knew you were going to get the doubt at Wembley. You knew you were going to get the last minute winner. You'd have gone for it all. But during it, wow! Yeah. I actually the grey hairs that I've now got in my beard is probably a lot of it is due to the last 2 years, and we had it the year before when we got to the playoff semis and lost in the last few minutes to Sunderland. But you watch Sunderland go on last year and get in the playoffs and nearly get promoted themselves. So it will always be a rock and roll. Well, no, roller coaster is probably a better word of a job, and as we mentioned, that what happens on the pitch affects so much what happens off it.
Yeah, I bet. So, back in the Championship, that means there's 2 tasty fixtures coming up. You've got City,
Leeds and Leeds,
home and away. Predictions? I believe we host you first.
Like really early on. I think it's might be the first away game of the season. We've had so much going on off the field at the moment. I haven't focused too much on what we've brought in, where we're going in terms of our recruitment, but we've got some exciting new players. Definitely, if we haven't looked at our own recruitment, I've definitely not looked at Hull's. I'm sure Dean Windus will probably still be playing there somewhere. We're farther against him. I think from my perspective, we want it to be a good game, but unfortunately, I do want Sheffield Wednesday to win both. But it'd be nice to see both clubs have a good season this year.
Okay, very diplomatic. Well done. So we'll as long as Sheffield Wednesday and Hull City get the 2 automatic promotion spots, then
as long as
that's the dream.
As long as I'm not sat in the director's box this time and not just sat in the stand getting grown men being mauled by the Tigers at me, then I'll take that. Even if that means it's a draw or something like that, just to stop that embarrassment of how I felt that day. But no, I think hopefully it'll be good for both teams. It's a really good league this year with having Leeds get relegated, sadly. And then
he says smiling.
And Rotherham in there, and there'll be a lot of good games and slightly less travel to do than last year to the home and away games. So it should be good. And I'm saying all this a few days before the start of the season. Well, fingers crossed.
See where it goes. So you very diplomatically gave me your answer about your score predictions. So I am going to push you one way or another on this final point, which is Hendo's or Chip Spice.
Big call. I was at Tramline Festival a couple of weeks ago in the first the festival that's next door to our stadium at Hillsborough Park. Everly Pregnant Brothers performing songs about Hendo's, and you've got that in you, but tough. It's a really big one. Can you have Chip Spice and Hendo's on top? Does that work?
I'm not sure it's ever been done. I think the world might explode.
If you have pie with the Hendo's and chips on the side with Chip Spice, is that as diplomatic answer as you?
Yes, but we were looking for something a little bit more controversial.
That's why I'm trying to go into politics. It's sit on the fence as much as possible.
Okay. Fab. All right. Well.
Just because this is for University of Hull, Chip Spice.
That's right. There we go. Can we just edit the rest of that?
Take it out. Chip Spice all the way.
That's it. So, any bits of advice that you'd give to anybody in your position, leaving the University of Hull with the world on their doorstep?
I would try. While it's difficult to get within, again, you work hard at it, but you have to have the opportunity, find the opportunities. If you can work within a big company, I'd try and do it. I think, as I mentioned, the training that you get with the blue chip companies is unrivaled. The time they spend developing you don't realise the time. So I think that would be a big opportunity. For me, the second one would be go somewhere new. Mm-hmm. So whether that's your first step is going to the uni rather than being at home, as you spoke about, or it's do I try a different market? Do I try and work overseas? Do I take on the opportunity in another county where I don't know anybody? Do I put myself out of my comfort zone? Definitely, because what you gain there, and that I think helps you in whatever you're going into in life, and that's the same job, different career, whatever it may be. I think that's a big thing, and just try and make friends and be nice to people, because the more you do that, the more the opportunities you mentioned become part of it. And I think Hull in particular, as we talked about, puts you in the right place for that, because you meet people all the time, and that'll last you a long time if you're nice to people.
Fab. Thank you. Well, we'll see you
12th. It's on the 12th of August, I believe. Please have got that right.
Very much hope that we can pull out the most embarrassing football chant known to the EFL.
It's okay. I'm sure Wednesday will reply with where were you at Wembley, but you know.
Well, I mean, been there, done that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.